I think compliance is even more important today than ever.
It's here. It's coming. If you haven't seen it, get ready.
I think that is probably the biggest compliance risk right now. Not only how it's being used within firms, but also how can the bad people use it to try to penetrate the firm.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is James Burton of InvestmentNews TV. I'm very pleased to be hosting today's discussion on mastering compliance. Delighted to introduce James Sahagian, Managing Director, Steward Partners Global Advisory. Hi, James. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, James.
Also, very pleased to have Jerit Dehaan with us, Managing Partner of Private Wealth Management at Clearwater Capital Partners. Jerit, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And last but definitely not least, we have Jerit Tripp, Partner and Lead Advisor at Gilbert and Cook. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the time. Glad to be here.
All right. So all our esteemed guests are leading professionals steeped in compliance. So I'm looking forward to hearing their insight. Jerit, if I can bring you in first. Compliance, a burden or a necessary evil, or maybe even both?
I would actually argue that it's neither. It's really what sets us forward of making sure we're doing what's best for our clients. And so building a compliance-minded firm with the client at the center of that and making sure they're taken care of is really the reality of it. And so keeping up to date on it is very important. And that's something we strive to do here each and every day at Gilbert and Cook.
Do you understand that the burden angle, though? I mean, I hear that word a lot around compliance. Do you understand that, where that comes from?
I do understand where it comes from, especially when there's so many moving parts and it's always changing and evolving. So understanding where a lot of people would call it a burden, but sometimes we can take burdens and turn them into opportunities. And then that's what allows us to continue to move forward, because burden to me also means it can get you stuck in the mud. And if we're getting stuck in the mud by burdens, we're not doing the pieces that are going to be best for the firm and, again, ultimately the client.
What about you, James? Do you see compliance as an opportunity, or what's your perspective on that?
Sure. Well, compliance obviously is a necessity in an industry as vast and as complex as ours. We absolutely need to have compliance at the forefront of everything we do, from communicating with clients to presenting products and servicing clients on an ongoing basis. It is an absolute necessity. It definitely has been evolving, especially with new technologies, ways of communicating with clients, and quite frankly, also the complexity of the products that we're talking about on a daily basis. No longer is it just, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. So I think compliance is even more important today than ever.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Could you elaborate a little bit there? No longer stocks, bonds, mutual funds. What else? What are the other headline sort of areas that you feel that has evolved?
I think the products we're talking to our clients about on a daily basis are much more in the alt space. So private equity, private credit, private real estate, structured notes, and a variety of other investments that didn't exist years ago. You think about the ETF landscape. I started out as an advisor in 1999, and I think you could count on your fingers the number of ETFs that even existed back then. And today there's more ETFs than there are individual stocks. Many of them are, complex strategies to generate income, to manage risk, a whole variety of ETFs. I mean, there's, literally thousands of ETFs that exist today. And so, trying to determine what products are appropriate for our clients and how do we communicate that with them, certainly all falls under the complexity of making sure that we're doing so in a compliant manner and making sure that the investments we're presenting to our clients are appropriate for them.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks, James. Jerit, the same overarching question, but I'm interested in your perspective on how the industry has evolved, and essentially then how compliance has evolved, and how the role of companies in keeping up with that has changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would start by just reinforcing the purpose behind regulations, right? It's there for a reason. It's to protect the clients, to make sure that we don't either on purpose or accidentally do anything that's going to harm those clients. So when you look at compliance progress or processes and policies through that lens, you totally get the idea that on the very short term, day to day, activity to activity, it's absolutely a burden. It slows you down. It's non-productive time that makes it harder for us to do our jobs. But when you zoom that camera out, I think back to what Jerit was talking about, right? The benefit that doing things properly that goes to that one-on-one action to action, the benefit is that clients are safer, firms are doing the things that they need to do to make those clients safer. It is absolutely critical to make sure that not only that the clients are protected, but that our firms are able to provide the services that those clients need. So back to your question of how is the industry evolving? It's not just investment products that are evolving. It's what our clients need from us, which gets us more deeply entrenched in their total balance sheet versus just I'm going to buy or sell this stock fund, whatever that it used to be, which means we have a lot more data on that client, which makes us a lot more of, or just elevates that risk level from the perspective of what could go wrong that could eventually harm that client. So I would say it's really the total service package that's evolved in our industry that's made compliance even more complicated.
And the title of this is Mastering Compliance. I wonder, given what you've just said on the day to day, and I would assume, you never assume, but I would assume, an advisor's take on mastering compliance would the ability to get all that stuff done efficiently and still have time to do all their other stuff. So, I mean, what would you suggest to an advisor who feels that is a struggle?
It always will be, because of the fact that needs. The firms are changing, the clients are changing, and the regulatory environment are changing. We're playing a little bit of pinball here, where there's just so many moving pieces that I don't think you can ever be comfortable saying I've mastered compliance, right? What you can master is the culture, right? The idea or the processes for how do we make sure that we're doing the things that are going to lead to changes in our policies, in our compliance program, to keep up with everything that's going on out there, given those moving pieces that are all kind of cross-pollinating to impact your compliance program.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So we talk about the pinball, the evolution. I'll go to Jerit to start this one off. Given all that, we've talked about the evolution, the fast-paced changes. What are the biggest risks, or what are the biggest areas that advisors should be really aware of when it comes to compliance right now, in terms of getting a handle on it and keeping up?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because, both as Jeff and James said, the landscape's always changing, and we all know what the big buzzword right now, and it's AI. And so I think that is probably the biggest compliance risk right now, not only how it's being used within firms, but also how can the bad people use it to try to penetrate the firm, and just how sophisticated that computing power is becoming, with password generation, with facial recognition, with voice recognition. I think that's something where we really have to have our antennas up to say, is this the person I'm talking to? And double check, triple check, and make sure that you're doing the right things from a compliance standpoint, and making sure that your firm's moving towards a place where those are being reviewed on a regular basis as the landscape continues to adjust and change and morph.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you brought AI up. I mean, it was always going to come up at some point. But James, the last one we did of this, James, actually someone talked in detail about voice imitation, which kind of blew my mind a bit. But is AI top of your list, James, of kind of compliance risks and voice imitation, for example? I mean, is that something that you're having to combat?
Voice imitation itself has not come up as something that we've had to deal with, because generally speaking, we have a manageable number of clients. We tend to know them, and we're not doing things with clients who we don't all know personally. So it's not we're serving tens of thousands of clients. No, we have a manageable number of clients that we know personally, and we haven't had that be an issue. But certainly AI is something we're trying to incorporate more and more into our practice, both from a marketing standpoint, both in terms of research and just trying to find the best opportunities for our clients. And the world is moving so fast, right? So everything is evolving literally day by day. So trying to stay ahead of the curve, or at least incorporate what we can to keep up with all the changes going on, is certainly very important. So I would say, voice recognition, not so much. AI, yes, it is. And there are some tools I think about in our marketing efforts. We use a program called Hootsuite, and Hootsuite helps us with our social media, presence and marketing. And they actually have embedded in the Hootsuite program AI suggestions, and we could kind of, use it within there. And it makes it great for us because it's already kind of compliant through the application that our broker dealer has given us to use. So I think this is going to be even more of an important part of the process in terms of incorporating AI as we go forward. I think we're just in the very early innings of actually making it applicable to our practices.
Jeffrey, I mean, was AI top of your list in terms of risks? Is that an obvious question?
Yeah, I mean, I would expand it to just cyber and client security or information security broadly. Right. We have had voice imitation through AI already as an attempt to gain access to client assets. We had robust policies that prevented anything bad from happening. Like James, we too have a smaller client set that we know well. The only way we knew that this was not our client initially was a very slight mispronunciation of their first name. Otherwise, we even played it for the client, and he would have said, I left you that message, right? So it's here, it's coming. If you haven't seen it, get ready. But beyond that, right? It's internal usage. How do we protect client data? Make sure that our own people aren't accidentally putting client or firm information into systems that then become discoverable for other AI answers and everything that goes into that. So it's a lot of due diligence and policy creation, because it's just a new venue for information security that we've never really had to worry about before. So when you Googled something, it didn't necessarily go into the Google algorithm for what the next answer was going to be, where today it can. So we use AI tools. They're awesome force multipliers, but you have to be really stringent, because people are, we're so early in the process that people don't really understand what it is and how it works and what it's actually giving them. So making sure the data security is right, making sure that they're not just taking it at face value, that information they're getting, and especially if it's going into justification for a recommendation or anything to the client directly. We're still in the infancy of that, and a lot of people just haven't figured that part out. So having those policies in place to say, these are the systems that we vetted and you can use client information in. These are the systems you cannot use any client information in. How is it working? And then the hard part is monitoring.
That voice recognition sounds a little scary if it takes one word, the diligence that is going to require to stop that. I just wondered, moving on and staying with you, Jeffrey. On the flip side, we talk about the risks of AI and rapidly evolving technology. How about, obviously technology, AI, how about, and you alluded to that in your last answer, how can we use the technology to strengthen compliance? Any specific examples on that?
So a great example would be just client meeting notes, right? We've all seen the Zoom note taker type applications. Again, I'm not endorsing that because there's a whole lot of due diligence you've got to do for everything we were just talking about. But the ability to ensure consistent, complete client note taking for every interaction that we're having with our clients goes a really long way to your books and records requirements to make sure that we've got all of the documentation of what did we talk about, why did we talk about it, not just from a service perspective to remind me, oh yeah, that's right, we talked about this and that's why I wanted them to go that direction, versus this as an advisor, but from a compliance perspective to make sure that we've got good records. That's a huge one. AI is also helping us on, things like insider trading policies, right? For our own access people, what can they be buying and selling, and does it conflict with policy, which is designed to ensure no conflicts with clients, where that's just really low hanging fruit, where it can really easily just flag trades that we need to go back and look at and say, yeah, that was in policy for these reasons, we're good, or no, it wasn't. And then we've got to remediate that situation. Yeah. So again, very early innings there. But a lot of review or oversight, right? How do you make sure people are doing the things that your policies say they need to do? There's a lot of room for AI type systems to make that a lot more manageable.
Yeah, the note taking is obviously another, I would say buzzword, but it's a huge thing right now, and it's been coming up on a lot of these discussions. I wonder, Jerit, just on that kind of the day-to-day client interactions that advisors are now using AI routinely, for efficiencies, to save time, to prepare quicker, to pull documents quicker. What should advisors be doing from a compliance standpoint to make sure that everything is correct and compliant?
Yeah, I think Jeffrey, you alluded to this, is there still has to be checks and balances with all of that. Yeah. And so just because we're utilizing AI to pull information, somebody still needs to confirm that the information is correct. It has to pass the smell test of, okay, yes, that is what's going on in my client situation. And so being able to take what it's providing us, because I don't see AI as necessarily a replacement tool. I see it more of an enhancement tool. And so that's how we've started to utilize it, much like Jeffrey talked about, is in the note taking, but then also how can it push out to other systems to get those updated, but then still making sure that those systems are correct once it's been updated. And what we've always tried to do is have two individuals in each client meeting. Well, we still have that, but now it allows us to take more time on the relationship and not just necessarily the note-taking aspect that takes place there. And as great as the notes were coming out of our meetings, what AI has been able to do is astounding.
The checks and balances are interesting. James, just from your perspective, using the tools and the checks and balances, how do you keep up? How do you put the resources in place to make sure that while these enhancements are astounding, that you're not slipping into dangerous territory?
Yeah, I would echo Jerit's comment on using the tools and technologies available to give us more free time to, rather than just taking notes, to really focus on communicating with the clients and then diagnosing their challenges and their opportunities when we meet with them. Structure is really the most important thing. So using a consistent template, whether it be forms that we use when we're running client reviews, a consistency of the process, use AI and the technologies, whether it be note-taking or whatever, to help alleviate the burden there, but to consistently capture data and information on a regular basis, consistency of process, assignment of responsibilities, workflows that are assigned to each team member. These are, ways in which we kind of at our firm are able to help manage the increasing responsibilities that are associated with servicing our clients.
Okay, interesting. I'm just going to kind of go around and ask you tips to help other advisors. This is something that all our readers are grappling with and looking for insights on. So I'll start with you, James. Given what we talked about, or maybe there's other things that you want to bring in, but what tips would you give, financial advisors at the moment in terms of, in quotes, mastering compliance?
I would just say, first, stop viewing compliance as something separate from client service. It's the more it's integrated into the daily workflow, the less burdensome it becomes. Standardizing how we run meetings, document decisions, communication with clients is really the best way to incorporate compliance into the way you run your practice. And secondly, just documenting the rationale, the why, rather than the what is important, so that if somebody ever has a question as to why you made a recommendation, it's justified in the notes. It's, your thought process is communicated. I think regulators care far more about the rationale of the recommendation than the recommendation itself, especially with more complex investments. And then finally, having a relationship. At the end of the day, we are in a people business. So having a good relationship and communication with your compliance team is very important. If you have any questions, I think just, especially in terms of, some of the challenges we run into is in marketing. Can we do this? Can we do that? We actually, for the first time ever, had literally client testimonials put up on our website, which was unthinkable, recently. But, back bouncing things off our marketing team and our compliance team, we said, you know what, we can do this, and it was approved. So just communication, I think, is really important.
That's a great answer, James. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. Jeffrey, any nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share with our advisors?
Yeah, I mean, I really like James' part, right? Start with the end in mind. The end goal here is we want to serve our clients well. We want to be good at our jobs, and that's going to make everybody win. Compliance is a component of how you go about doing that. So I really like the idea of embedding that and letting it be a service driver mindset versus a burdensome mindset. I think the other thing I would just add, we have to have a community around compliance, and it's not just within the firm. Within the firm is incredibly important that you have that sense of community and people are open and able to talk and share, what am I doing? How do I do this properly? But even amongst the industry, right? We've got a lot of resources out there, and we need to pool those resources to make sure that everybody is up to speed, because, I think testimonials and endorsements are a perfect example. That's been around for a while now, and we're just starting to see people try it because nobody wanted to be the first to find out, right? to break that ice or be the first olive out of the jar. But as we are learning lessons as a group, as an industry, we can help each other with best practices, that would take us individually a lot longer to figure out, or would just be a blind spot because we're all busy. Then this is complicated, and it's there are things that you've just not thought about that somebody in your network or someone that's reading something like an InvestmentNews article is going to mention. And the ability to use your resources, I think, is the biggest other tip.
Yeah, excellent advice. Thanks, Jeffrey. What about you, Jerit? Any final tips to give our readers?
Yeah, I think Jeffrey nailed it right on the head when it came to the fact that building a foundation of a kind of a support system around compliance, meaning don't be afraid to ask what others are doing. And we are all better when we learn from each other. I think one of the benefits that we utilize is an outsourced chief compliance officer but still internally, we have a compliance team made up of individuals from each department. So as things are changing and as things are moving, we're able to then cascade that to the rest of the group, as well as doing regular updates amongst the broader team. So we're all on the same page.
Fantastic. Well, Jerit, Jeffrey, James, fascinating discussion. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
And we'll see you next time here on Investment News TV.